So this is my son Micah's 2006 Mustang GT. We bought it used. It's his first car. So if you see any dings in it, you know, not too big of a deal. He's learned to drive a manual, and it's a 5-speed. It's got the 4.6 liter V8. This is the first time we've had it up off the ground. We got it put on jack stands the other day. Crawled up underneath it, checked everything out. He had one exhaust leak. We're gonna replace an exhaust clamp on it. Checked all the fluids, brakes, everything's pretty good to go. But for Christmas, he had some aftermarket springs on there. This car rides really rough and sits really low. So for Christmas, he got some Ford Performance P springs, not the K. These are the P's. They're supposed to drop the car about an inch from factory. He's also sitting on 18-inch wheels instead of 17s from the factory. So we're gonna see how all these fit together. We took some measurements, and I'll put them in at the end of the video so we can show the before and after. And I'll see if I can't look on the springs and see what kind of springs they were. So first thing he's gonna do is he wants to do the work. I'm gonna try to video him. He's gonna take the bolts off the rear sway bar, get it to drop down. Then we're gonna take some off the axle, put a jack underneath there and lower it down and see if we can get these rear springs out. I'll be back with you. Set that aside. We'll go do the other side. It just hangs there, buddy.
Okay. I should probably go the other way.
Alright, so he's got the sway bar disconnected, the rear sway bar. Got the jack supporting the differential. And now he's going to take this bolt off, the lower shock bolt. And that's why I have that supported. So once we do that, the axle should be able to fall down a little bit. And there's a lot of manpower there getting that untwisted. We'll be able to drop this down a little bit, pull these rear springs off, see what they are, and put the new ones in. Be back with you in just a minute once he does this over and over again. Alright, so we got both of those out on either side. The only thing holding up the axle is the jack. He's going to lower it down nice and slow, and that should let the, there it comes, take some tension off the springs. You see them popping loose there. I'm going to stop there, boom. We'll see if that's enough to get it out. If not, we'll go ahead and do a little more. Alright, so we got the old ones out. He's putting the new Ford Performance P springs in there. Making sure they're in right side up and the pigtails to the rear.
You mean the letter can be read?
Yeah. The letter can be read. Alright, that's one side. We'll go do the other and we'll start putting it back together. Alright, so got everything tightened up. The sway bar is connected again. The lower shock mounts are connected again. Went back and tightened everything, make sure it's nice and tight. There's the new Ford Performance springs on there, look nice and shiny and blue. Now we're gonna go pop the front and work on the front ones. Go pop the hood and get ready. Alright, so up front, the first thing we gotta do is remove these two strut retaining nuts. Then we'll take the brake one off the back here, right where my fingers touching, and then pop this little connector for the ABS, and this should droop down. We'll put the jack underneath the front there to support everything, the lower control arm right there where it connects, and we'll put the jack there to kind of ease it down, and we'll pull this right out after we take the top, disconnect the top. We'll see if we can't do it step by step for you. Alright, so that was a 15mm bolt head and a 21mm socket. They come right off, and leaving the bolts in place just kind of to hold everything in. And we'll take the brake one off, like I said, in the back, disconnect that, and be back with you. Alright, so we've got the nuts off, the line disconnected, the ABS line disconnected, the bolt for the ABS back here is off, link here is done. That was fun. We got that hanging down out of the way. We got the jack sitting on the bottom of the lower control arm, putting a little bit of pressure on the spring, and we will go up here. We'll take the center one off and these four, and then we'll lower it back down, and we'll pull our bolts back off here. Take the top one off first, putting a little bit of pressure on here to kind of free up some of that tension on it. Then this should kind of fold out of the way. We'll pull the bottom bolt out. The nuts are already off, the bolts are just holding them. Once we pull that bottom one out, the whole strut assembly should come out with the spring attached to it. We'll let you know. Alright, so we didn't have a spring compressor, So we ended up putting it all back on the car just like we would have. Put the bolts through here, hold it up, and then put the jack and jacked it up into the shock tower, and we're able to put enough pressure on it to get that nut started. Then we could take it back off, and the whole strut spinning inside of it. So we end up, all we got to do is put a 10mm on the end of it and that wrench and tighten it back down to where it needs to be, and then we'll get it all mounted back up and do the same to the other side. So he's done a good job. He's got everything put back together. So the new springs are on there. Got it tightened down up here. We were able to put it back in, put an impact on it, and just make sure it was snug up all the way once we put it on the ground and tightened it up. Everything's tightened down to the tower. He's finishing the last 2 big nuts there for the strut mounts. The ABS is already mounted back on, and we'll be done with this side and on to the next one. Alright, so we just got the passenger side on. It was a pain. The driver, passenger side, we were having to do our little cheat way. We don't have a spring compressor, like I said, of putting it in here, putting some tension on it, and then getting that nut started. We had to take it all back out, put it down, and tighten it all the way down. And when we got it up in here, we put an impact on it because the bolt for the actual strut, itself was spinning when we were trying to put the nut on there, so we had to tighten it down that way. We're going to put the wheels and tires back on the car, drop it on the ground. Before we do that, we're going to take that one exhaust clamp off so we can go get a spare or another one. Put it down on the ground, see what it looks like, and we'll be back with you. Alright, so we got it back down on the ground, got all the tires mounted again. We haven't moved the car yet, and I know it's going to have to settle, but just took some preliminary measurements, and I'll get some pictures, put them back up here. We were measuring from this part right here to the ground with the old springs and the new springs. We're sitting about a full inch higher than we were. I know, like I said, I know it's got to settle, so we're going to give it some time, maybe a couple weeks. We'll measure it again, see where it's at. But we'll drive it, make sure everything's good, still tight. Since we took so much part in the suspension, want to make sure we got it all back tight, and we'll go from there. You happy?
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.